Serious, Redditors who witnessed a murder, what is your story? I was at the grand opening of a sports bar the night that Manny Pacquiao fought Chris Algieri. The bar was jam-packed beyond belief, so packed that you couldn't get back to your table without shimmying through the other patrons, trying not to put your butt on the back of their necks. Anyway, a guy who had paid, entered and had some drinks, went outside to take a smoke break. No smoking allowed in the bar. There was still an incredibly long line to get inside, so he tried to come back in the exit door. The bouncer told him he couldn't and that he would have to wait in line and come back in the main entrance, though he didn't have to pay again. The guy was pissed and tried to push past the bouncer. The bouncer eventually pushed him out the door and locked it. The guy then apparently went back home, grabbed his girlfriend's gun and came back to the bar. I learned this after the fact talking to the owner and via news coverage. He waited until someone left out the exit door, snuck inside and shot the bouncer in the back of the head several times. The bar was so packed that chaos ensued. Almost everyone hit the floor immediately. There were tables, food, drinks, keys, phones and people all laying on the floor. Other people ran outside. My buddies and I waited for a few minutes until we knew the coast was clear and then got the hell out of there. At the time, we didn't know all of what had happened. As we exited the bar, we literally had to step over the dead bouncer to get to the door. I was lucky enough to find my phone and keys amid the melee. One of my buddies found his keys but not his phone. He never got it back. Sadly, that sports bar never really recovered from that incident. It closed down for about a month before reopening. But it never achieved the popularity that it should have due to that incident. I was a bouncer at a strip club for a few years and I've been in a bunch of fights, but nothing worse than a few bruises. Stories like these always haunted me though, because I know drunks are effing crazy. We threw out a guy that was selling cocaine once, and the managers filmed themselves telling him why and that he's banned for life, and then on effing camera the guy just tells him, "I'm going to effing kill you." Jesus. Imagine shooting a bouncer in the head for not letting you in. Like, that is such an insane effing response, I can't even fathom it. Dude should never ever be allowed to roam the streets again. When I was 10, my uncle murdered my mom's boyfriend at our house. It wasn't in the house, but he chased him through our house and killed him outside in front of the house. It really destroyed a part of our family as well as relationship between my mom and grandmother. It was 30 years ago and I am only one alive besides my uncle that was there that night. I wanted to thank everyone for the kind words and the questions. Kind of therapeutic to talk about. Do you know why your uncle murdered your mom's boyfriend? I'm assuming your uncle is in prison? He is in prison. My grandmother always wanted him to get out and I was there for her. She passed and I no longer care if he gets out or not. I replied above it was an escalated domestic issue with fighting, alcohol, and pride. Thank you for the response. That's a really terrible thing for you to go through, especially with it splitting your family. I wish things had been different for you, and I hope you're doing well now. At a pub about 2 years ago. Large group out the front arguing, then a guy got blindsided and punched in the side of the head. The guy that hit him sprinted off into the darkness. The guy went down and never got up. His wife watched it happen and was trying to get him to wake up while the fighting and arguing continued. 30 minutes go by and the guy hasn't moved since being punched. Bar staff have been doing CPR on him for about 15 minutes before emergency services finally arrive and continue. Turns out he was brain dead on impact. They kept him alive somehow until the morning but turned life support off the following afternoon. The guy was 46, at his local bar and got killed. Heaps crap thing to see, I'll never forget that night. The guy that hit him was 19, got charged with murder and is in jail as we speak. Edit. Some people are wondering why he got charged with murder and not manslaughter. In Australia we have a thing called coward punch laws. Basically, if you blindside someone or king hit them, you get charged with murder, 8 years minimum. Personally, I believe he deserved a murder charge. Watching that man go limp and hit the ground and the attacker running away was one of the most sickening things I've ever seen. He came up behind him and punched the guy above his ear. He had no idea it was coming. Pretty much instantly made him brain dead, in front of his wife. No sympathy for the attacker here. Honestly, this is one of the main reasons that I'm a complete pacifist. Something similar happened at my high school, but far less violent. It was an argument, and a kid got pushed. Just pushed. He ended up falling down and hitting his head on the curb. A week and numerous surgeries later, he died. The thought that even the simplest and least aggressive forms of violence can result in the loss of human life is something that weighs on me heavily. It's the main reason why I'll never get in a physical fight. And on the other hand, people been shot in the head point blank and somehow live. The human body is weird. I've seen both sides of this, your comment and the one above. I cared for a teenager who was 4 years into a coma only because he knocked heads with another kid during a rugby match. Also cared for a guy who was in witness protection from a gang hit, having been shot 2 times in the head and 6 times in the chest while unlocking his front door. I have no idea how he survived it. He was extremely changeable with his mood, would become aggressive at the drop of a hat. The aggression is understandable. Brain damage has a tendency to make the person dealing with it really angry for no reason. I was a bouncer at a bar. A guy swung at me in the parking lot. I knocked him out and he hit his head. He was out 15 minutes. I was terrified he wasn't going to wake up, or that he would have permanent damage. The hospital put him in a coma and performed brain surgery to relieve pressure from an aneurysm. He survived without permanent injuries and I was charged with aggravated assault, which was thrown out. I quit the job soon after. Before this incident I fought a lot. Now I do everything I can to avoid confrontation. Life is fragile. There's a documentary called One Killer Punch about people who inadvertently killed people during street fights and were charged with murder. Will make anybody sane run as far away from fights as possible. Here's the full doc if anyone wants to watch. Web link. This was when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, so late 80s. My friend's mom had picked us up from school in her station wagon and I was in the way back. There were probably 6 or 7 of us kids in the car and we were stopped at a traffic light across from a homeless shelter, about to get onto the interstate. This guy is walking down the street with an armful of chewing tobacco and drops a pack. A homeless guy leaning up against the wall picked it up. There was an angry exchange in which the guy refused to give back the tobacco, so the other guy kicked him and stomped him to death on the sidewalk. Oh my God, that's terrible, so brutal. Was walking home one day and saw a couple arguing. The dude started walking off away from the girlfriend's car, and apparently she was not happy with that. She proceeded to get in the car and wait about 5 minutes till he was way off down the sidewalk. I was walking on the opposite side of the road as him and all of a sudden I see a blur and he goes flying like a rocket. She must have been going at least 60 miles per hour. He flew through the air and hit a tree. Died instantly. The women then screamed out the window at his body and drives away. There was blood smeared all over the crumpled hood and I'll never forget the sight of his contorted body at the base of the tree. Almost folded in half. I had to talk to the police and within the hour they caught her at a car wash, trying to clean the blood and chunks off the hood and grill of her car. I was 16 at the time. For those of you concerned, thank you. I actually did have to see a therapist for a few months after. I'm doing very well right now. However, I don't think I'll ever fully get over it. It's one of those things that always sticks with you. Holy cow. Me and a friend once witnessed a lady trying to run over a dude. We assumed they were in a relationship. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get to him. This was around a rail crossing. We called 911 right away and gave the car description until she took off and we lost sight. We ended up going to a fast food place down the road and there she was, parked, trunk open, changing clothes. For some reason the 911 operator called me back at that moment and I was able to give her the license plate and her description. Thank goodness we didn't witness a murder. That is very lucky indeed. So glad she wasn't able to go through with it, and you didn't have to witness it. I'll always remember it. It sort of burned into my memory. What happened to her? Went to prison for murder and a bunch of other charges. But claimed insanity. I think she will get out in my lifetime. I was 16 driving down the highway in the passenger seat of my mom's car, about 3:30 p.m. Traffic came to a complete halt and we were in the right-hand lane. So as we're creeping along, a semi-truck appears on the shoulder of the highway, door swung wide open. As we move past, there is a trail of blood down the doorstep onto the concrete and then leading about 20 feet further down the road. As we crept further, the trail of blood ended with a man lying face up completely covered in blood. There were no police or ambulances there yet. This was on a highway in the suburbs of a major metropolitan area in the US, so plenty of people saw before the scene was taken hold of by emergency services. Turns out the truck driver had a partner with him. They got into an argument and the passenger stabbed the driver like a dozen times and then escaped. The murderer was caught about an hour and a half away, one state over, 2 days later. I have to imagine that I was about 5 minutes behind the truck pulling over because the police can be in that spot in about 30 seconds. Being in the passenger seat in the right lane of the highway, I was about 10 feet from the body. Haunting image. That's pretty horrifying. Just so happens I was on my way to a therapy appointment, so that overtook whatever else I was planning to discuss, laughing out loud. That's convenient? I'm so sorry you had to endure that, but I think therapy is the best place you could have been headed. Saw my neighbor murdered in cold blood in my own driveway. My neighbor was helping his lady friend escape a very abusive relationship. Lady's ex hunted her down like a dog. Saw my neighbor walking back home with her after they went to get food for his kids. Heard 3 loud pops. I ran outside to find her screaming and him blown out of his shoes and into my driveway. He had a hole in his chest big enough to put my fist in. There was nothing I could do to save him except sit with him and hold his hand while I prayed for him to pass quickly. I'll never forget that night. 48 hours later I broke the lease on my house and moved in with my boyfriend, who lives in a much safer borough. You were an awesome neighbor and a wonderful father, Kane. You're certainly missed. Edit for those wanting news articles. Edit number 2. Yes, I get it. I misspelled his name. It was an accident. We all aren't perfect. Web link. Unfortunately, there is not a lot you can do in those situations, and I am sorry you went through that. I was away for a while in the military, and when I finally came home, a good friend of mine invited me to a party, so I went. He ended up getting into a fight with a couple random older guys that were there that no one seemed to know. He beat one of them up and they got in their car afterward and sped off. The girl who owned the house kicked everyone out who was involved, so I left as well. My friend was standing on the driveway smoking, and I offered to give him a ride home, but he said he was already waiting on a ride. After I left, it turns out these men were gang affiliated from LA, and they came back and shot and killed my friend in the driveway. I still feel guilty about not insisting to give him a ride that night. I wish that I had. This is so terribly sad. Obviously a lot of led up to the story, but I'm not going there. My girlfriend was taking her dog for a walk while I got showered for work. I'm in the bathroom when I hear voices coming from outside. I look out the window, and to my horror there is my girlfriend talking to her abusive stepfather, who is standing about 5 away from her. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I knew it wasn't good. Stepfather raises his shotgun, shoots my girlfriend in the face, then shoves shotgun under his chin and pulls the trigger. Murder-suicide. Life's never been the same for me since. Lots of messages, so I wanted to say this. Thank you all for the support. It was 20 years ago, and though I'll never get over it, I can live with it. It took nearly 2 years before I came to realize there was nothing I could have done to stop it. I will never forgive her family for knowing what that man was doing to her, and they did nothing about it. I'm not really good with words, but I wanted to thank everyone for the kindness and support. I'm so sorry for your loss, and even though that pain can never fully go away, I hope time has helped. Damn man. No words. Hope life sorts itself out for you. May her memory be only a blessing to you. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I was around 8 to 9 years old, and we were in a vacation village. While we were doing checkout with my family, my father was at the desk while we were waiting at the lobby couches. An argument broke out between 2 guys who were at the lobby bar. I actually don't know what it was about, because it was in another language. One of the guys grabbed a bottle, smashed it, and attacked the other one, hit him in the neck. That guy fell on the floor, and there were blood all over the place. My mother closed my eyes after that, and took us out while other people get involved. Years later I've learned that guy lost his life. I saw one guy try to dramatically break a beer bottle at a bar during a fight. He smashed it on the table, and instead of the end breaking off like in the movies, it broke down the middle and slashed his hand to hell. Blood was gushing. BTW, does anyone know what to do if there's glass in a gushing wound? I know you're meant to apply pressure otherwise, and you're not meant to take out the glass. Asking just in case, it may be useful information. If you can make a tourniquet higher up on the limb, do so. It'll at least slow the bleeding. If it's the torso or neck, pressure, if possible without pushing the glass or other shrapnel further in, and best of luck. I hope the ambulance is close by. When I was 6, my family went to see Sesame Street on ice downtown. When we were leaving, a little girl my age was struck by a van and dragged across the parking lot. I remember the mother jumping on the windshield screaming at the driver while the van was still moving. My mom was a nurse and was helping until the ambulance arrived, but she was already dead. I can still remember the screams and lifeless body of that little girl. This was over 30 years ago. Well, that's enough of this thread, I'm out. Jesus, what did I even expect coming in here? That's so horrific. I'm so sorry you had to see that. So sad for the family. This is why you slow the F down in parking lots. Jesus, I'm so sorry for you and especially that mother. I have to stop reading now. Same. My 30-year-old cousin was killed a couple years ago in the same fashion. Victim of road rage turned into him being dragged under a car for a mile. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.